Yeah, it's definitely going to be very exciting. I would say that Pragg has a very technical, also quite aggressive style, and Anish has a very theoretical style as well. He's not afraid of these dynamic positions, so this means that we're going to see a big battle early on in the game. And there we see Anish open with the queen's pawn. It's my favourite opening with the white pieces. Now, how is Pragg going to react? He develops his knight, standard stuff, and, well, Anish is always going to play into the main line, so he pushes his bishop's pawn 2 squares forward. And there we see Pragg approach a very push open with the e-pawn. And here we go. Very aggressive choice from Anish already.
OK.
Yeah, very aggressive. So it's the Nimzo Indian that is characterised by black's dark square bishop coming out early, and we've just seen that dark square bishop trade itself off for a knight. And this is transposing into a variation we call the Samish, named after a very famous player. And this position is so imbalanced because look at white's c-pawns. They are doubled right now. They're eternally weak. But white has the bishop pair, and in the centre of the board, white has the perfect pawn formation. Those 3 pawns on the 4th rank control a lot of squares. So there's a lot of long-term risk here for Anish Giri. That's why I'm slightly surprised by his opening choice. He normally doesn't want to take on these structural defects, these long-term weaknesses in terms of pawn structure. But short-term, he has so much potential. And Pragg, actually, with the black king, it looks very safe right now, but watch out for it getting attacked later in the game. Anish playing super fast up to this point, just moving his knight out the way. Now the white bishops are ready to come out. And the bishop pair also a relevant factor for later. But what do you think of this opening choice, Ivanka? Very risky for both players.
It is definitely risky. And I have noticed that when Anish is successful against Pragg, it's always because he chooses very critical openings. You know, he puts Praggnanandhaa on the back foot very early on. So I think this is a perfect choice. And I'm just checking the database, and I can see only 3 games. So I was looking at where did the players make those unusual choices. But I have to say, within those 3 games, it's even Stevens. Both players have 1.5.
OK.
So Salem Saleh is actually the main practitioner of this. He's played 2 games. First, he beats Raunak Sadwani, and then he lost to Daniel Yufa. So 2 high-quality games.
Yeah, so some grandmasters have battled it out in this position before. And the one thing that's so strange to me is Anish Giri, he's playing in this opening, choosing this setup, this risky strategy. Not this exact position, but just until 2 moves ago, Pragg had played this before himself several times from the white side. So Pragg will know all of the little details, all of the nuances. Anish Giri had played this position from the black side himself and lost some important games, including against Jordan van Foreest in Vaikanze, including some other big battles. So, yeah, it feels as if both players have adopted the other one's strategy. Pragg here playing black against an opening he likes to have with the white pieces, and likewise Giri playing the white side in a position where he's maybe suffered with black, but has more experience with the other colour. And there we go. Black did commit his king. Eventually, you needed to choose which side to put the king on, and Giri just continuing with piece development. Normally, black, with this last move, proving this, he's going after the c4 pawn, those 2 double c-pawns that I mentioned. It's the front pawn that's the weakest. And, yeah, Pragg not hesitating. Giri needs to be aggressive to justify his pawn structure here.
Yeah, he definitely has to be aggressive. And I do remember quite a while ago that this kind of pawn structure was a big favourite of US champion, previous US women's champion and grandmaster, Irina Krush. And she used to tell me that, you know, sometimes you just forget about that pawn that's under fire, the c4 pawn, and you just focus instead on marching your kingside pawns in just forward, F for forward, and initiate an attack. And that this is very, very dangerous, because if you were to look at black's king, you see it's only got 1 defender, which is the knight.
Yeah, and I think we will see those factors come into play very, very shortly. It depends on what Pragg does here and over the next couple of moves. If Pragg is too slow, if he just sits, waits, doesn't really achieve much with the black pieces, then suddenly, as you mentioned, Ivanka, white is going to start stepping forward. I just really... In these positions as black, I always fear this dark square bishop coming out. White's dark square bishop is the only unrivaled piece of its kind, and it's threatening to come out with a really nasty pin that's going to be hard to break. So we mentioned the weaknesses in white's position. It's this pawn. The typical move here, maybe the most thematic move, would be to go after it. This pawn is attacked twice. It's actually almost impossible to defend this pawn now. It's going to drop off the board, and like you said, white is just going to ignore it. Anish is just going to, for example, create that type of pin, Or for another idea, okay, Pragg has played this. Another idea, as you mentioned there, Jovanka, would be to just continue marching forward with his pawn, and that is on the board. It's the 4-pawn attack. One of them will drop. It is going to be this c-pawn that's captured, I guess now. But Anish, he's going all out against Black's king.
We have to say it. Mean Girls.
The Mean Girls, yes.
Yeah. Don't see them that often. We have to mention it when we do have the Mean Girls on the board.
Yeah, and it's always more impressive when they're in the centre. It's like they control everything pretty much. And that is why I'm expecting Pragg to eliminate one of the gang. And for example, after a bishop exchange, I think Anish's idea will be to push a pawn forward and just to try and break lines open towards this Black king. White's rook is now about to be on an open line. White's bishop still has the potential to come out and create that pin that we mentioned. White has ideas as well against a loose knight on this square. Tactical ideas all over the place. And yes, Black's a pawn up, but not really relevant right now.
And also what's disconcerting is, take a look at Anish's clock time. He's barely paused for thought. This means he's in home preparation. And do you want to be capturing those pawns when your opponent has studied everything? Yes. These are the thoughts that are running through Praggnanandhaa's mind.
Yeah, it's that psychological warfare that we always see in the opening between the top players. Often both players have studied similar positions, but who knows more, who's gone deeper, who's kind of maybe checked this position with an engine more recently, whose coach has told them all the secrets about these positions. Feels like Anish knows more than Pragg. And Pragg is on his own. He's spent 3 or 4 minutes now on the clock since move 1, and he has to decide, do you capture this pawn? The problem is, what else? You're basically facing an attack no matter what, so you might as well have something to suffer for. So I would expect Pragg, after not too long, to pluck up his courage and grab the white pawn on c4. Yeah, we're in for a really, really chaotic game here. And I just love the fact that Anish, he's starting on the front foot. He's attacking. This is what we've wanted to see from him all season, Anish Giri. And he's played it a bit too safe on occasion. Not today.
No, not today. It feels like he's a man renewed, actually. He suffered a setback in the global championships, and now he feels like, OK, I'm determined, I'm going to change my approach. And I really love to see this critical style of chess being played out over the board. And, well, we do. Just while the players are thinking, well, there we see pawn takes pawn actually appear on the board.
Oh, we still have the Mean Girls.
Yeah, even more perfect, right? Yeah. Every single pawn. And now, finally, a pawn drops off the board. And I don't think these captures change things too much. I mean, the plans are still very much the same that David mentioned earlier. And whilst Anish is pausing for thoughts.
Oh, we have a really cool quiz of the day.
We do have a very cool quiz of the day. We are asking everyone at home to caption this picture. And
not this.
Not this picture. No. Here it comes. What is David doing? And when did this happen? Well, caption this, and you can answer using the hashtag #ChessChamps, and we will feature your answers on the show. And remember, if you also want to join in the fun, send us questions, send us your selfies. So you can do that via the hashtag.
Even move suggestions or even questions for moves.
Yeah, we love all kinds of interaction.
Questions about life, just anything.
We'll help you.
We love them all. And nice to see Simon again as well in this picture. So caption this. David sneaking in to Simon's camera.
Oh, sorry, Simon.
I don't even remember when that was taken. Do you?
Well, because I could see Esipenko in the background there. So it must be from Everything's Masters, because that's the only tournament we had Russian players. They have been not invited on the tour this season after Russia invaded Ukraine. So sometime during Everything's Masters.
Yeah, feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But back in this game, this one is really dramatic now because something along the lines of what we explained is happening. Anish Giri gave up that pawn, ignoring the whole queen side, that left side of the board now. He's just saying, OK, let's swap bishops. Let's do whatever you want there. I'm going for the Black king. And he's pushing forward with the f-pawn. It doesn't look too dangerous for the next couple of moves, but if Anish Giri is given the luxury of time, then White's dark squared bishop is coming out, lines will open up. Even more pawns might step forward towards that Black king. Pragg needs to find a way to maybe simplify, maybe swap off some pieces. It's still the clock time for me, Jovanka. Look at Anish Giri. He's got more time than he started the game with. The evaluation bar says it's good for Black, but maybe Anish has looked deeper. Maybe this is the type of position that's only fine for black if he finds a series of really accurate moves.
Oh.
And there's no guarantee that Pragg will find them.
I have to admit, I would be terrified here, actually, because, you know, the ideas that you mentioned of the dark square bishop jumping out, pinning the knight, white's knight on sitting on g3 is also primed for action. I don't know how to handle this. There's no clear-cut way. So it's very, very scary stuff for Pragg right now.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point that Anish Giri is still in his home preparation. I'm pretty sure he studied this exact position before, despite the fact nobody in history has ever reached this position, I'm assuming, Ivanka. Yep. And, I mean, that's simply because in this variation, in this position, I think Praggnanandhaa can win a whole rook. I think he can win material, or at least Anish Giri is about to sacrifice a whole rook. For example, as we jump in, here, the most natural move for black, because you're about to get attacked, it's not the one that Pragg played. This is very sensible, maybe the best move. But I was going to say the most logical move is just to automatically capture a set of bishops. Why not trade pieces? And now you can jump in with the black knight. You can hit this rook in the corner, hit the bishop, hit this pawn in the centre. You can't save all of them for white. And rather than save time moving the rook out the way, for example, allowing black to come back, capture a pawn, black would be 2 pawns up, I think Anish Giri's preparation will have been to just let this rook drop, to just give it away and to go on the attack with this pin. This is what Pragg was scared of, hence pushing the h-pawn to stop this bishop creating the pin. And now, if the rook is captured, white leaps forward with his knight, and due to this this awkward tension, suddenly lines will open up towards the black king. It's almost guaranteed if the black knight, having grabbed a rook, rushes back, for example, suddenly there would be danger. Bishop takes knight. And this is the idea, this is the type of idea, at least, that Anish Giri is going for. He's going for the black king. So let's go back to the game. There have been developments in this position. Rather than capture the bishops on Anish Giri's terms, Pragg said, OK, I'm going to push forward. I'm covering the dream square for the white bishop. And suddenly, after a trade, Anish just slides his rook across, really calm. What is his idea here? Does he want to bring it up the board and swing it across, maybe?
Yeah, a rover rook. Yeah, I definitely think that is the idea. Again, played almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be the idea. You need to invite all the pieces to the party. You gotta do something now, otherwise you're just a pawn down.
Yeah, and it's difficult for Pragg, actually, to break the tension, this tension with the pawns. It looks really nice for white. You don't ever want to get impatient and capture this pawn, for example, as black, because suddenly white's knight arrives on the dream f5 square. This is the perfect launching pad for any attack. It's going to sacrifice itself on this square and open up the black king, on one of these two squares at least. So you can't really touch that pawn. If you block it up, then firstly, white could ignore this, but even if the centre gets blocked, white still has this idea of bringing the rook up, moving the knight out the way, and then shifting the rook across. And due to the pawn structure, white has so much space, white has plenty of lines to attack with. It just feels so scary for black. So, yes, white's a pawn down, but I think the pressure is all on Pragg, and you can tell this on his camera, on his clock time. He's down at 7.5 minutes against 15. That's significant.
Wow.
And it looks like Anish Giri, he's played the perfect opening in terms of practical chess, in terms of putting the opponent under unbearable pressure. Yeah, this one is really heating up. Let's go back to the players. Can Anish turn this opening preparation into victory? He needs to strike, because he won't catch Pragg unawares like this in the rest of the games. You normally only have 1 or 2 surprises up your sleeve in an opening against a top player. And this is his shot. He's trying it now.
So is it mostly due to the time that Pragg is spending that you're thinking that he's surprised he doesn't know what to do? Because the bar is slightly over to Pragg's side, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's spending a lot of time on the clock, but also the position is so dangerous for black. I mean, so many attacking ideas that Pragg has to navigate this very carefully. And there we can see, it's like you've become a fortune teller, David.
I did it by accident.
You say it, they play it. Okay, they're not listening to us. And now he mobilizes his rook. It's just a very, very dangerous position. And when you're surprised like this, you have to react cautiously, and you have to treat your opponent's ideas with respect, because everyone is training with computers. I say computers, it's probably supercomputers these days.
Yeah, so for example, the evaluation bar has gone back to 0 now. This is the type of position where if white gets one strike in, one blow against the black king, we'll see the evaluation bar shoot off in white's favour. It's very unlikely we'll see the evaluation bar shoot off in black's favour unless Anish makes a blunder somehow, or unless he trades pieces and just ends up in a pawn down endgame. But due to the fact that there's so much pressure, and it's quite long-term pressure, if you look at the pawn structure in the middle, white's pawn's on the 5th rank, black is very cramped there. So white is the one going to attack. And yeah, I have a feeling Anish, as you mentioned, Jovanka, he's looked at this with a supercomputer. That means he's maybe used Stockfish or Leela Zero, one of these modern engines that they all analyze with, and he will have left this type of position on for 30 minutes or something for the computer to break down the numbers. This might be the type of position where we see the bar, which calculates after 30 seconds, it says it's equal. But if you leave the computer running for 30 minutes, it might say that white has a huge initiative. And again, black will have to be accurate, remember. Pragg shaking now, trying to get some energy going. And I like what Pragg has done. Just very calmly brought his rook to an open file. Black's knight on that left side of the board in the white half. Very active, stopping white from, especially the white bishop from moving. But yeah, Anish, he just needs to find a plan. And then we'll see some big attacking chances potentially for white.
And when you say type of position, because obviously Anish cannot have foreseen that this exact position after 18 moves would come on the board. So when you say type of position, what similarities will there be? Kings on that side and pawns in this kind of pawn structure? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it there, Kaya. Basically, it's this pawn structure, it's this piece configuration. It will be the plan of attack. So I think we might be in new territory now on move 18, but up until maybe move 15, 16, Anish played every move instantly. He'd at least figured out where he wants to put the pieces, and now probably he knows where he wants to put the pieces, Anish. It's just choosing the order. Do you want to try that rook lift that we highlighted a few moves ago? Do you want to try that first? Do you want to bring the white queen out first? Do you want to tuck maybe the white king into the corner first? There's lots of ideas that you want to achieve. It's just maybe figuring out what order to do that in. And this pawn structure, he will have studied something along these lines before. At least that seems to be the impression he's giving right now.
Yeah.
Slowing down though slightly.
He is slowing down, so I agree with you. I think he's just simply choosing the move order because he will have played this position out. He will have looked at ways for the white pieces to attack the black king, and he will have had experience here.
Yep, and this is the type of position where humans will have studied with a computer. Maybe Anish, he's very professional. He will have played training games in similar types of positions, but yeah, it's always hard to remember the details. Someone like Anish, he's probably studied tens of thousands of opening positions in his life. So sometimes it just takes a while, a couple of minutes, to get back in the zone, to get familiar again with the position. And what do you think, Jovanka? What will we see Anish play? It feels like he's ready to move almost.
I think he's going to lift the rook 2 squares forward. And I think he's just simply working out what's going to happen if it gets attacked, where it's going to swing to. But to me, that's the most natural move. I also quite like your tucking the king away into the corner. I've been burnt very recently, quite a few number of times, about not tucking my king into safety.
Yeah, that feels like an Anish Giri type of move, right? Just safety first, tuck the white king in the corner, and only later attack when you're fully ready. White's king looks fine right now, but it is on an open diagonal. Maybe there'll be some checks later, some time-gaining checks. So, yeah, it's very tense.
Tense, yeah.
Yeah, he's played a great opening. He just needs to back it up now.
Pragg probably happy to see Anish finally thinking he makes a knight jump. Is that something not what you expected, I can see?
No.
Yeah, not yet at least. I thought he would prepare this, maybe with the rook swinging up first, but OK, he's setting some traps for Pragg. Pragg can get greedy and grab another pawn in the centre, but I think that would backfire. Basically, Anish is trying to remove black's only defender. That black knight is about to get traded off for white's knight. And, wow, interesting move by Pragg. Retreating black's knight, that is purely designed against the rook lift. Remember, white's rook on the b-file wants to lift up 2 squares and swing across. That's no longer possible. Black's knight on the other edge of the board, covering that. They're breaking the rules now. They're playing with us. Knights on the rim are dim, guys. What are you doing? But, yeah, They are finding some very creative moves.
Cool game. First one today on day 2 in the Champions Chess Tour finals. And Pragg, he comes inspired to the board today because it was announced earlier today that he is the recipient of a big sports award in India. And Tanya, of course, international master from India yourself. What is this big award that Pragg has received?
Kaya, it is the second highest sporting honor of the country that's given by the government of India, and it's truly the dream of every athlete to win the Arjuna Award. It just means so much. It's a big recognition for all the efforts and the success.
Wow. And Pragg actually tweeted about receiving this award. So, and you say it's a dream for any sports person in India. Here we see the tweet as well. Truly blessed and honored to have received this award. How big is it for an athlete and a sports person in India to receive this?
It's huge, like I was saying, and since 2013, there hasn't been a single chess player who's won the Arjuna Award. Every year, around 15 to 25 athletes from different categories are announced. They win this award, and it's been a long time since a chess player did. So for Pragg, it means a lot. I actually won it in 2009, so I know exactly what this feels like, and it's a huge deal in India. It's the President of India who gives this award, so a big moment for the family, for the friends, and means so much for the athlete.
Wow, fantastic, Tanya. And there are so many young Indian chess players nowadays. Why do you think it was exactly Pragg who received it?
There were a lot of applications that were sent and received, but then it's such a process, and there's so much due diligence. Performance is measured, the kind of success the athlete has achieved, how many medals they won for the country. And Pragg's just done so much of that over the last, and it's not just over a period of 12 months, over a period of a year, but they take into account a couple of years, see your performance, see your growth in the sport. And I have to say, it was that moment when Pragg beat Magnus for the first time back in February, the Air Things tournament, which really exploded in India. And everyone took notice of it, including some of the biggest names in the Indian government as well. And I think probably it's just such a well-deserved award after his performance at the Olympiad, throughout the Champions Chess.
Fantastic. Thank you for that insight, Tanya. How cool that right now we have 2 recipients of the Arjuna Awards in this picture. Thank you, Tanya. How cool. Praggnanandhaa receiving a huge Indian sports award entering this game, and the bar is now more over to his side. Is this going in his favor, do you think?
Potentially, and that's because of a bit of a strange move by Anish Giri on the previous turn. We mentioned that White's rook wanted to lift up the board. It did lift up the board, but it's not swinging anywhere. White's rook on the b4 square, maybe a bit misplaced. And now Anish, he's sacrificing a second pawn. Let's go back a couple of moves. This is the current position. White has just put his bishop to attack the black rook. But here, I think White had several tempting opportunities. For example, the queen could just develop, but White's rook lifted. And the reason it's not a good move, the reason the computer dislikes it, is because it's blocked by its own pawn. Ooh. It wants to jump over its own pawn and swing towards the black king, but that's not possible. Black's rook activated, and here, several opportunities for Pragg, several tempting moves. Maybe he could have just been greedy. Maybe he could have grabbed a second pawn. But now the evaluation bar reacts the other way, because Pragg has tried to pin the white bishop, but the black rook is on a loose square. What could be the downside to this move? I don't see why immediately the computer favors White suddenly. The rook looks like it's very active. Maybe it's just because it can be hit in a few different ways. The white queen can attack this rook from this side. The white queen can attack the rook from this side. It's a very strange, very hard to evaluate position, to me at least.
It's very difficult. I mean, and it's not obvious to human eye, because I was also confused. So the computer analysis is simply, as you say, the rook can be attacked. And I mean, it's just unbelievable, actually, that you think that White's attack is going to be worth 2 pawns, because after Black captures the second pawn, it's saying after the knight takes knight, queen takes knight, the bishop can come back to C1, to its starting square, attack the rook, and the rook is forced to go to the A1 square, and it's trapped. It's got no squares.
Yeah, it's trapped. Wow. So Anish Giri could maybe trap the black rook. It's not the end of the world for Pragg here. He can give his rook up for a bishop. And here we would see a material balance of knight and 2 pawns for one of white's rooks. So it's actually level material. But the reason the computer probably favours white in this type of position is because it's the rooks that are superior to the black knight. White's rook is ready to infiltrate. It's on an open file. Black's knight is sidelined. So maybe that old adage that knights on the rim are dim, maybe that will become very relevant. But it's not easy to see in this type of position, in the game position that we have right now on the board, that this rook is about to get trapped. It's centralized. Centralized pieces are the hardest ones to cage. And Anish, he finds it. Of course he finds it. Great maneuver here. And it's a key detail that after rook takes bishop, if the rook tries to give itself up, you don't capture the rook automatically. You play a Zwischen Zug, a Zwischen Schach here, in between check. And first you play knight takes knight check. Otherwise, black would have captured your knight next move. And only after black takes you back, then you win the black rook. So, wow, this is really clever geometry from Anish Giri. And here, Jovanka, maybe since this rook is about to get trapped, maybe it has to step back and offer a trade for white's rook. Otherwise, you just have to give it up for white's bishop, right? This is really difficult to evaluate.
It is really difficult, but the problem is that black has lots of bad pieces, and so stepping back with the rook actually would be a worse solution.
Wow.
I mean, this is really difficult to see again and anticipate, because after knight takes knight again, the queen will capture, and then you will ask the question once more to the rook. Bishop attacks the rook, and then after rook takes rook, this is so long and so difficult, and the question is to the knight.
Yeah.
Where are you going to go? You
Yeah.
don't have any safe squares.
Who are you going to call? It's Ghostbusters. This knight is just a terrible piece right now. I mean, the white queen is going to start entering the black camp, winning some pawns, and this would have been terminal for Pragg. So he did indeed get greedy here, and he didn't go back with his rook. Instead, he grabbed a pawn, but with this square, taking a pawn on a3. And now we are expecting Anish Giri to swap off the knights, keep things simple, and just go back to trap this black rook. Anish Giri has the advantage. I think Pragg, with that misstep, putting his rook on the wrong square, has passed the advantage over to Giri, and suddenly everything to play for. Pragg is going to have to be very creative. He's going to have to show all of the resourcefulness he's proved throughout the season just to save this game. And I think Anish Giri, he will, after a bit of a think, find this maneuver. Bishop retreats are quite hard to see sometimes, but there's nothing else. You have to try and trap that black rook.
Yeah, and Anish is very good at spotting those targets. So I think you will see it. And as I've learnt this weekend, rooks are better than knights.
Yes.
In all 3 games. I played 3 games last weekend, and in every single game, I was a rook for a knight down. And I was like, when it happened the 3rd time, I was just like looking at it, I was just like, don't ask. I don't know how this happened. Like, fate is laughing at me. And now it's showing me again that I need to brush up on the defensive skills.
Yeah, so maybe Pragg will... I mean, he's basically in the shoes that you were in your 3 games, Jovanka.
Yeah. And if this is not the universe telling me something...
It happened yesterday in a couple of games
I
as well.
know, that we commented on. Oh, my goodness me. And whilst Anish is considering his move, will he spot that backward bishop move? Well, we have captioned this competition, and Richard Harding captions the picture saying, "Did I just see the squirrel opening?" And Dark Fur says, "We all have that one friend." Yes, David. Yeah. David is actually really good at photobombing pictures like this.
Are you?
I have one where he managed to get in between, actually, Anna Kramlin and Pia Kramlin. He managed to get in between their faces.
Yeah, I felt really guilty because it was a really nice mother-daughter photo. They just had their arms around each other, but I was standing behind, and I appeared in the little gap between them, like a little troll. But, my favourite thing is photobombing. Sorry, Simon. Some great captions. Keep it up. And what is Anish Giri doing here? Because we thought he would trade off for Black's knight.
Oh!
He's just given up his knight for a pawn. Is this... I mean, either this is genius or it's a mouse slip. He's given up White's knight, and also White's knight is trapped on this square. So the question is, does Pragg even take this knight now, or does he have something better? I think Anish's idea here is to just go purely on the attack and go all out for the Black King. He's hoping that he's luring the Black King out into the open onto a vulnerable dark square, but Computer says it doesn't work. Pragg, he's got 4.5 minutes. Can he find the solution? Can he find the refutation of White's move? And we have to jump in because...
Yeah, I was going to say, it looked like Anish was super calm in the beginning after making that move, but then he started shaking.
And here, Anish's idea, he's given up his knight. If the knight is captured, then the white queen steps back, hitting the black rook, but also lining up with her bishop against this weak pawn. If the black rook saves itself now, I'm not sure where it goes, then bishop takes pawn. This does look very scary. The black king doesn't have many protectors around. The white queen is swooping in. It's still very complicated. Maybe Anish, he has some attack here at least. Maybe he can try and deliver checkmate, but Ivanka, I must admit, I took a peek here because it's so hard to spot this move, the winning move for black. The winning move is not to get greedy and take this knight.
Yeah, I also took a peek as well, but it makes sense. I mean, the whole thing is that when your king is in danger, you should trade off queens, and so you just simply offer a trade of queens.
Yeah, the best move is just a simple sidestep with the black queen. Not only do you offer the trade of queens, but you take away the route towards black's king from the white queen. White's queen wanted to step back, remember, utilising this diagonal, but also this diagonal. But now, due to the tension on the c-file, white's queen has no way forward. If you don't trade queens, the only way is to step back, and now black's king will take the knight. OK, he didn't find this, Praggnanandhaa, so now we're going to see fire on the board. But here, white would just be a piece down. Pragg could have been a piece up for nothing. The queen trade, remember here, would favour black because white's knight is trapped. This knight has no way back. It's going to be taken, going to be captured. And, OK, he didn't find this. He had a lot of time, Pragg. I'm slightly surprised. He was looking for options, but he took the knight, and now he is going to face a double threat. The queen is attacking the rook, and the bishop is attacking this pawn. The computer still prefers black, slightly, but with such a weak king, there's no guarantees anymore. Wow, one moment of drama. We didn't expect that. We thought Anish was going to show us the calm, the simple way of playing. He could have just trapped the rook for free. He's given up his knight in the process.
Well, that's the thing, though. You know, when you're kind of primed for attacking the king, I guess his attention was focused in that direction. I also didn't even dream about this sacrificial idea. I mean, it could be an inspired moment of genius. It could work out. I mean, and everything to play for. And the player is now locked in thought and just looking at the time situation. You see, Praggnanandhaa doesn't have so much time, just over 2 minutes.
Yeah, just over 2 minutes, and especially when you're the one who's been surprised, that definitely would have come as a surprise to Pragg. It shocked us here in the studio. Yeah, 2 minutes is not really enough. So, OK, the black rook did save itself.
And now takes a pawn, and then the king sidesteps, but now it's going to be all about the white queen mobilising.
Yeah, the one issue for Anish here, the one issue for white, is that the rooks can't join the attack. There's no way for that white rook on the left side of the board to ever reroute itself towards the black king. The other white rook wants to step up the board, but it would only get traded off by black's rook. Black's rook on the 3rd rank does a great job, actually, of controlling some key squares. So what do we do here? I mean, if we're materialistic, we're a piece down. We could regain some of the material. White's bishop could go and take black's rook. But after the bishop is recaptured, suddenly we have 2 knights against a rook. That still does favour the 2 knights.
And the white rook's just not able to mobilise themselves, as you say, not able to join in the attack. I mean, somehow, if we could transplant that rook sitting on d3, just kind of flick it away, move it away, then white is going to be winning. But it's not easy to do, actually. You cannot chase that rook away, or maybe you can.
Yeah, maybe you can. But the problem is, how do we kick this rook away? We need the white queen to attack this black rook in the middle of the board, but the queen is teamed up with its bishop. You can't lose protection of that piece. You can threaten checkmate in one move here. For example, let's jump back into the game. It's so critical right now. The game will be decided over the next few moves, or at least the momentum will be. You could threaten checkmate. White's queen could jump in, trying to slide up next to the king and trap it. But maybe this is what Anish missed, that after the rook slides across, defending, there's no more entry squares for the white queen. If you slide back, this looks scary again, threatening a discovered check against the black king. But black's rooks now, they just kick the white queen away. There's no more attacking squares for the white queen. She has to retreat, and she will lose her bishop. So in the current position, you mentioned it, Ivanka, maybe you need to just get rid of this rook. But first,
grab the rook.
You need to just take this piece. The reason I'm reluctant is because now you're only attacking with the white queen. You can jump back in again, but black's queen will offer up an exchange. Exchanges will help black. 2 knights long-term will beat a white rook. And yeah, it feels like the attack is fizzling out for Anish Giri. He needs some magic dust. He needs to sprinkle something on this position, and he tries, not by being materialistic, but by going for a pin. And is this going to work? Pragg says, OK, I'm just going to bring another piece to the defence.
And still the idea is there of just simplifying, perhaps trading off the rook for the bishop.
Yeah.
And trading into an endgame.
Exactly. White is attacking just with the bishop now, so why not get rid of it next move? Pragg is a whole knight ahead, so he has the opportunity. That's often the best way to kill an opponent's attack, give back some of the material they sacrificed, just to get pieces off the board, just to water the position down into an endgame.
And it's also such a great move from Pragg because it also ties down the queen. So I really like Anish's last move. So this means the queen can now move from this dark diagonal and perhaps step up one square, attack the rook, and get ready to move over to the e2 square. Ooh.
Wow. OK, Pragg very calm, brings his knight in. This looks like a blunder at first because it looks like two pieces will be attacked, the knight now and the rook, but black's knight can just retreat to a protected square and save its rook. Evaluation bar loving what Pragg is doing right now, and rightly so. He's re-centralized his knight. Assuming that this happens, he's re-centralized his knight and everything's protected. The knight protects the rook, the knight itself is defended, white central pawn is under fire. Feels like Anish, he got a bit overexcited, went for the attack when it wasn't really there. He could have played it calmly. Pragg, yeah, so calm. He's a great defender. That's one thing we haven't given him credit for this season so much, because we're so impressed by his counterattacks, his kind of play on the front foot. But when players go for his throat, he's he's very calm. He's just, yeah, he always seems to find a way to re-coordinate his pieces.
Yeah, I remember him doing it against Jordan van Foreest. Exactly same scenario, sharp position, and he just handled the complications beautifully and won on the counterattack. And talking about counterattack, Pragg is completely winning here. Look how he's manoeuvring his pieces so that they can protect each other. And the queen side moves 2 squares to the right.
And Anish has ticked under the minute on the clock as well.
Yeah, it might be decisive. I mean, not only is it critical now on the board, but the clock. You need to create something here for white. You need some trap for black to fall into, but how do you get those creative juices flowing when you've got less than a minute on the clock, when you're a whole piece down, running out of material? White's queen can't deliver a single check. That's the key. Black's rook is no longer trapped like it was in the previous variations that you showed, Ivanka.
Yeah, and white's rook's still no good. They just don't have an open line to fire down.
You kind of want to pick up all of white's pawns and throw them off the board and say, OK, at least now I have some open lines for my rooks.
Exactly.
But, no, Anish's pawns block his own pieces. And under 15 seconds for Anish Giri, his body language does not look positive. He almost looks as if he's kind of resigning himself to the fact he is lost. OK, it's desperate times when you're a whole piece down and you have nothing better than shuffling your king into the corner. This would have been a good move 10, 15 moves ago, but it's too late for that.
And Pragg clinically pushing the a-pawn forward. It's very difficult to recommend a plan for Anish.
Yeah, I mean, why don't those pawns keep rolling?
Exactly.
The A and B pawns. Yeah.
There's no threat whatsoever on the board. And there you go, attacking the rook one more time. Rook is forced to step back, and he's offering a trade. I think this is a good idea, because black's rook, it was so aggressive. It was such a nuisance.
Yeah, but tactically, does this work? Black can swap a pair of rooks, and white's pawn in the centre. Look at white's e4 pawn. Both the black knights are staring down at it. It's going to fall, and with it, that should be the end of Anish Giri's chances. He's looking away, drinking some water, 30 seconds on the clock. It's beyond saving now, this position.
It's a big missed opportunity for Anish here, and I agree. His position is just collapsing.
Yeah, it's so strange what he did in a way, just that knight takes pawn move. It was a blunder for several different reasons, actually. And it feels like Anish played that earlier blunder by instinct without backing it up with calculation. And unfortunately, at the top level, especially against players like Pragg, who are so accurate with their calculation, can't get away with that. And yeah, after a trade of rooks, black's knight did snack on a pawn. Right now, black is a knight and a pawn ahead. And minimal threats. The black knights defend each other perfectly. Still no checks against the black king.
Yeah. It's just all about pushing the pawns, actually, on the left side of the board. I mean, no threat, as you say. And he just moves with his queen. This is also great technique. Queen is threatening to come in onto the 4th row. Pawns are going to get pushed. Nothing for Anish to do now.
Yeah, he's run out of pieces. And I was praising his opening. I still think it was a great choice. He got a fantastic position out in the opening, great chances. But yeah, if you don't back up an opening with really consistent play, really accurate, energetic play, and of course, great calculation, then things might fall apart. And it's always risky against someone like Pragg. 15 seconds, I think we'll see Anish resign. How about you, Juvenka?
Yeah.
No chance left.
Just resign now.
Yeah, just move on to the next game.
And you're taking the rule, Simon.
Someone has to. Yeah, he went down to 6 seconds on the clock there. And Anish, and he lifts his rook, but we wanted to lift the rook up the board ages ago. Now any rook swings are blocked by white's own pieces. The white h-pawn is in the way of any checks. Black's king, safe as houses, as they say. No chance. And yeah, he's just going through the motions. Pragg is going to wrap up this win in short measure, activating the black queen, and nothing else to do.
Yeah, I just like the way that Pragg is playing. You know, he's taken full control here.
And we have a result. Pragg takes the first game of the match.
Wow, look at that. And Anish Giri, he just rushes off. It's Pragg who takes